Yeah, very true. I think, this whole aspect of funding, and that therein lies your point of private sector being allowed. This problem probably will be much lesser if private sector is willing to pump in funds.
Hi, I'm Jaideep Gupta, founder and CEO at Univariety, and you're listening to The Ed Show.
Welcome to that show, a podcast where I sit with some amazing personalities from across sectors and borders to have meaningful conversation on topics that matters to us. Welcome back. Today we have a very special guest with us. He is a well-known entrepreneur, an investor, an amazing author who has authored some amazing books, and one of his books on business strategies titled Born to Baba received rave reviews and was listed by Amazon in its prestigious list of memorable books of 2018. He is someone who has served on the boards of various flagship organizations including BNP Paribas Asset Management, IDBI Bank, Maya Entertainment and more. He was the chairman of Confederation of Indian Industries for Western Region and was the man behind one of the largest skill development organizations in the world as CEO and MD of EPTEC Limited, and currently sits on the board of EPTEC along with many other organizations. He is also a partner in Indian-based venture capital firm 100x.vc. He is Ninad Karpe. Hi Ninad, welcome on the show.
Delighted to be on the show.
Ninad, first of all, congratulations for writing such an amazing book, Born to Baba. It has actually done wonders. I believe this is the second year of the book.
It is. It was actually inspired when I saw the movie Skyfall of James Bond, and I was so taken aback with the fact that the character of James Bond was reinvented so much. And can you imagine that led to various insights into business strategies and analogies. And so the first chapter is on James Bond. That's why Bond, and how the character was reinvented and how Skyfall became so successful and the need for each business to reinvent. And the last chapter is on Baba and how they are getting into business. So that's why Bond to Baba.
Great. Sounds exciting. Ninad, we both know each other for a very long time, and I've seen the work you have done in skill development space while spearheading EPTEC. Can you share a little brief about your journey in the skill development space?
So Aptech was a very interesting experience. I'm still a director. I'm no operational responsibility. I was CEO MD for 7 years, and it is a very interesting business because of a couple of reasons. It's a listed company, of course. It's the only brand, probably from India, consumer brand, which is there in more than 20 plus emerging countries. So 27. So Aptech and Arena are very strong brands in Vietnam, in China, in Russia, in Nigeria, and I've had the privilege of traveling to this country. So to build a consumer brand which is service oriented from India in so many emerging countries on a franchise model in education and seeing lives of young girls and boys totally change because of the education that they get was truly rewarding. The main thing was important part was how do you give consistent education across so many centers, and how do you ensure that the end of that course, the young girl or boy got a decent job and changed the livelihood for her and him and their family.
The way skill development was mushrooming back then when EPTEC or similar institutions came to existence was actually a time when we had little or no understanding of technology. And now that our younger generation is getting more equipped with the technology and that they have already started learning technology at a very young age, don't you feel that our government should formalize the skill education system for schools rather than making it informal?
I agree with you 100%, Himanshu. Today coding is treated as a new English, and the kids as young as class 4 also want to learn coding class 5, and they're delighted to learn and see the magic of code and see it in front of their eyes. So I'm just giving one illustration of how it has reached that level, and it can happen for everything, just not coding. But yes, it has to start. I think probably a sixth onwards is the right time to expose kids to some bit of these kind of other vocations.
Oh, yes. Well, coding has actually picked up really well. But it is not just about coding, as skill education or skill development has a lot of other areas to be put under consideration. And now that many startups are mushrooming to teach various skills, don't you feel that it is high time that our government should also, take this under consideration and formalize the entire skilling ecosystem, keeping schools or higher education systems in
True.
mind?
The hopefully the sunrise in this whole horizon is the new education policy, which has actually specifically spoken on this issue. It has suggested that schools should co-opt with local vocational education institutions, ITIs, and get them to interact with the kids. So let's hope it happens soon. Let's hope it happens.
Well, I truly believe that the national education policy will correct our past, but I'm still a little skeptical about how it will impact our future.
Let's remain optimistic, Himanshu. Uh,
Implementation will always be a challenge, as it is not just about implementing a policy for once. It is actually a 20-year long plan. And do you think that whatever we will be implementing, 5 years down the line, will be relevant at that point in time?
right. No, I agree with you, and I'm not in disagreement, but I still remain optimistic that at least now we have a fairly comprehensive, broad framework. And within that framework, obviously, implementation, very diverse country like India, where education is on the concurrent list, has its own set of challenges. I don't think these challenges are more complex in any other country. But given the challenges, at least broadly, there is a framework, and hopefully within that framework, whatever we can chip year by year, month by month, day by day, week by week is good.
Ninad, you are one person who is always optimistic, and you also believe in simplifying complexities in the entrepreneurial journey. Do you feel that we should also simplify education structure by allowing corporate to enter into the formal education delivery domain? Maybe by allowing them to establish school, colleges, or universities, or as how you would say, allowing Alexander to fill in the gap?
True, true. So I am a believer in allowing private sector in social sector on a in a proper frameworked manner, in a proper box with light regulations. Now, let me further elaborate. The social sectors in India are healthcare, education. Let me go to another example in defense. We have seen in the recent 4 5 years, the government, and rightly so, I am in full agreement and support the view that they have allowed private sector participation. In fact, they're encouraging with obviously its own precautions and regulations. Healthcare, they have allowed. Financial services, massive liberalization with foreign companies coming into insurance, which at one point of time was considered a tough sector for allowing foreign companies. Education remains the last bastion. It's a bugbear. I don't think there's unanimity in opinion and policy on this. It has to emerge, and it should emerge. I think if you have proper regulations, it will happen. The new education policy has made one or two references saying that private people with philanthropic pursuits, so obviously not for profit, should be allowed. It has also made some reference to foreign universities, but obviously the reference is that they come to India, select universities, and also keep their money in India. Let me also add, I have been lucky to travel to many countries. Uh, Education in no country is an open sector, so you just can't go as a private person and get into formal education. Let's say vocational, where aptech plays a role, is fairly light in most countries because people want this. So it's not the case that other countries have totally liberalized and we have not, but there's a strong case, and I agree with you. Given the complexity of the problem in India, and the urgency to have good quality education for our young girls and boys, the need to allow private sector in a properly controlled manner.
The way our government has recently opened up its doors by allowing private universities to enter into India, don't you feel that we should be taking similar steps at the school level as well?
So, education is a concurrent list, but by and large, state and center have always had peace for many years by states generally controlling school education and center generally controlling education after K-12. States can do it. So it's up to the state to allow private sector. No state has openly allowed, but yes, as long as it is in a trust format and it's in a not-for-profit format, private sector can enter in many states, if not all the states.
Well, I am of a thought that education is not just a noble cause, but it is an industry in itself. And by allowing privatization, it will not just bring in quality of education and the services that the education institutions are offering, but it will also allow us to bring in foreign direct investments or FDI in this space, which may even help us create much better, education institutions.
The key word, Himanshu, in what you said is quality. What is more important? Control, allowing private sector, or quality? If you say quality is the first and most paramount factor, then you start allowing FDI, you start allowing private. All of that can happen. But if you flip the thing and say no, control is more important, then obviously other things. So I think there's need to flip this question. There's a need to flip and understand the other side from policy decision making perspective.
The resources that our kids are getting today were not available during our times, and I feel that we still have a long way to go. Don't you feel that the privatization will actually allow our institutions to focus on quality and services the way we have seen with other industries?
So, in India, we have all formats. There is a public education, there's a pure private education, and in some shape or form, there has been a PPP format in various initiatives. So, you ask for a flavor, and it is there, except for pure for-profit private education. Except for that, one segment, which obviously hope both of us see it soon. But leaving that, we have all the other segments playing out in India, and each has its plus and minus points, and we have seen it play out over the years.
One thing which I have seen in the last couple of years is that how edtech industry is mushrooming in India and globally. And one thing which I have seen is that the majority of the edtech entrepreneurs who get into this particular space are not from education industry background, and hence they fail to understand some critical challenges in the education. But this privatization may actually be the key to enable our education institutions to get into edtech space the way MIT and Harvard have co-created edX.
So there are two parts to this. One is I mentioned earlier, coding is the new English. So to get into edtech, unless you know coding, it is not very easy. So that's number one. Number two is education sector. Has been a laggard, has been slow in adapting to technology. BFSI always is in the front line. On the other hand, as a general observation, I'm sure there are a lot of exceptions and good exceptions, but they have been slow. If they have been slow in accepting, adopting technology, it is impossible, or rather not impossible, rather difficult for them to have technology-led education initiatives. So DNA does not allow that. When that does not allow that, it is not. It is a good thing that people who have coding skills or tech skills come from outside, have a fresh look. So the best way to do it is to have collaboration between the two, domain experts of education and people with tech experience who can put technology layer on top of the domain experience.
And what are your views on empowering kids with entrepreneurial education?
Kids are very excited with startups. They really want startups to do well. I always give this example of going to colleges, and the period of last 8-10 years, I've been to many colleges Just 2 days back, I had a talk with some couple of hundred students from Kolhapur, just as an illustration. But to cut a long story short, 10 years back, if I asked college students whether engineering, MBA, arts, commerce, science, how many of you want to become startup founders, probably 10%, 15% raised their hands. And the balance 85, 90% look at them strangely saying, what are these kids up to? But now it's reverse. 80% raise their hands, want to become startup founders. Balance 20% say that we will work for 2 years and then go to startup. So the demand and the aspiration of the kids is huge, and it is for us to ensure that we meet this aspiration. Should we teach it at school level, college level? It can't be just a subject taught. It has to be an entire thought through program where we expose them to business leaders, where the schools, colleges call alumni from their alumni, all famous entrepreneurs who have done well, to give talks. Colleges should embrace openly incubation process, mentorship by professors, accelerators. So if it is done rather than a textbook style teaching how to do business, it can work.
And I was actually about to say the same thing, that we should be giving our kids the exposure of different industries and professions while they are still in school.
Absolutely. And the right person to tap is within any institution. Tap the person who has, can be inspiration for the rest. Tap girls who have done well in careers and professions and business. Give inspiration, and you will find a lot of people. And today, because of online technology, no one says no to sharing thoughts with students because you don't have to travel. It's on online.
And COVID 19 has actually speed up the process.
Absolutely, absolutely,
All the educational institutions which were still working with their rudimentary thought process, they have also shifted to technology.
absolutely, absolutely.
Don't you feel that other than the technology and entrepreneurial skills, we should also teach finance and money to our kids? As this is a very crucial area, and this area has a much bigger gap to fill, as we still don't teach money management to our students.
So, even a rudimentary skill like we have, programs at senior levels, finance or non-finance people, where you just teach basic. They're absolutely essential. When I said coding is the new English, understanding basic finance is also very critical. Uh, the last thing a person does is, I'm a great engineer, I know great coding, I can do this business, but I don't understand what is EBITDA, what is gross margin. It is tough to run a business like that. It has to be taught. And these things can be taught in a classroom. Finance fundamentals can be taught.
And why just fundamentals? When we see how ecosystem in the Western countries are mushrooming and how educational institutions are gearing up to provide every single resource or opportunities to the students, then why can't we do that?
Agree. Let's start with fundamentals and then move on from there.
And this may also enable our education institutions to support our startups, maybe by involving and evolving the startup ecosystem by providing them with the seed investment.
I am very, very optimistic about startups. India will become the global hub for startups in education for certain and overall. There's a massive opportunity for startups in education. The system needs a lot of innovation. Innovation can happen only with young girls and boys who do the startups. They need to be nurtured. Ideas of these founders are fragile. They require to be nurtured and helped and mentored. And if they are mentored properly, they can certainly be successful.
And don't you feel that we as entrepreneurs or investors should join hands with educational institutions and help empower the right entrepreneurial spirit in these students and support them in their startup journey right from their schooling days or college days?
Investors should do what they're best at, which is invest money and ensure that the company grows. If you distract yourself too much, your basic your basic thing which you are good at may get diverted. But yes, I think you and me or and other investors are always open to giving talks, sharing ideas. Sharing knowledge is not a problem. Beyond that, I think commitment of too much time will distract investors. But we are certainly sharing knowledge is critical, important, and we should do it.
And one thing which I have seen in the developing countries like India, Vietnam, or maybe other similar countries where AppTech is already working, that in these countries we have seen that these schools are struggling for their own survival. And now, in a scenario where educational institutions are struggling for their own survival, then how can we expect them to deliver quality education?
Yeah, very true. I think this whole aspect of funding, and that therein lies your point of private sector being allowed. This problem probably will be much lesser if private sector is willing to pump in funds. If you're doing it on a not-for-profit charity basis, education always remains. Sorry, funding and always remains a challenge. Uh, so, in the developed countries, some large institutes and old institutes have perfected the art in a very, very organized manner of tapping alumni to ensure their future growth by funding. And it is not a one-off thing of fundraising. It's a very well-oiled communication platform and engagement platform with people who have passed out.
And there are other challenges as well. And now I'm talking from the investment point of view. Now, education institutions work within the highly regulated framework, and hence the scope of growth is not that high. And hence it creates a lot of hurdles when the institutional management approach private investors or firms for investment, as investors don't see it as a profitable venture.
Yes, true, but there's a growing trend of decline in people going to free public schools or government schools. I had never imagined seeing a front page ad on leading newspaper from the local government schools advertising that our kids have got X percentage marks in the last class 10 exam. Uh, and they are feeling the pressure of kids leaving or declining enrollment because of quality of education. And it's a good trend in the sense that they should feel the pressure because ultimately it's not just about free, it's about quality. So there is a growing trend and demand, and parents are willing to really spend a lot of money for kids' education, particularly starting from school level, and they are demanding good quality. That I'm not saying government schools cannot deliver good quality. We have exceptions. I have read case studies of schools in Delhi, some schools in Bombay, government schools which are delivering truly good education. The whole equation needs to be changed. But yes, uh, the first step in India was to ensure that education reaches out in the corners of India everywhere. The next step is now quality. Uh, Parents and kids are not saying just send a kid to school. I want quality education.
I have always seen private investors or even some VC firms investing in school or higher education space in Western countries. And I always wonder when such investment opportunities be easily available in developing countries.
Yeah, so for VC to enter into very highly regulated space, VC generally enters only if there is exit possibility. So that if it is not very easy, it is difficult directly in a formal space. But there are a lot of adjacent spaces. We have today. India is has the world's number one tech company in terms of valuation and massive VC investment. And we are seeing a lot of investments in edtech. So these are all surrounding spaces, not formal education, which is a good trend. It's a good trend because it is supporting innovation in that space. It is, it is actually getting a lot of investment, not just from India, from outside India. The non-formal space of education.
Do you feel that investors or angels or VCs should venture into educational space? Well, I mean in school and higher education institution space.
I remain optimistic it will happen soon. I have been to international conferences, and even some of the very, very tough countries in Africa also have allowed private education. I know of a model of $1 per day school education, and it's phenomenally successful with a chain of schools in Africa. High quality, given in a process manner on $1 per day. It is possible, and I'm sure it should happen
And
soon.
Ninad, I also remember a model that you were talking about during our last discussion wherein students can study for free, that too in a private education scenario. Can you elaborate on that?
True. There's a institution called 42, which is started by Peter Thiel. He's a French billionaire. He's given a grant to this institute. They just teach coding, and they take thousands and thousands apply every year, and they take couple of hundred. You go to that institute. There's no classes. There's no time. You come, you collaborate, you meet your friends, and you do coding. It's uploaded, and as you keep doing more and more coding, it gets tougher and tougher. And in 2 years, 3 years time, you're ready and you get a job. And the best part is there's no fees. It's entirely driven because of the grant which that billionaire has given. He started again also in US as well.
Wow, that's exciting. But don't you feel that teaching one particular subject area may actually create hurdles at a later stage, as the students may not be aware about the other areas?
True. So this is more at the master's level. Once you've had a graduation and you want a specialized skill, so at that level, it is there. Coming back again about this dollar per day kind of model which I was telling you. So in healthcare, we have seen affordable healthcare happening in a very processed manner. We have the famous story of eye healthcare being delivered, in across the country and started in South at a very affordable rate with very very sharp processes, very strong processes. So I believe that model can work. If it's worked in healthcare, if something is working in Africa, why can't it work in India? It can, but it is driven by a private motivation, of driving it hard.
Oh, in that case, I will surely go back and study about 42. And I believe that we, as developing nation, will also see certain relevant changes in our education space. And we will head towards the privatization in the right format. So obviously, the government has to do a lot of strategic framework in order to allow privatization in education space. Keeping the same in mind, we also see that today our youth also wants to move out of the country for higher studies. Will it change the trend?
So this will change the trend because of COVID and the fact that a lot of it is going online. My belief is fundamentally a lot of people will do online sitting from India and a small portion of that being on campus. So good quality education will become more affordable, and it actually is an interesting opportunity for the best universities in India and teachers in India to offer the same to in a reverse manner to students outside India. It just requires a broader vision and an ability to think of going international. Today our best universities, and we do have very good universities and teachers, have not leveraged probably or have had not had the opportunity to leverage their strengths internationally. So if Aptech can do it, why can't the best universities? As simple as that.
And now that COVID has also speed up the process of online education and self-learning, don't you feel that with this, our schools should also get into the online teaching mechanism wherein they can also tap desired students from other states and countries?
Probably at the school level, it might take some more time. They have embraced this new reality very well. But to get students from outside at the school level, I would be a little hesitant. It may be possible, across 10th, 11th, 12th area, but below that may be tough. Having said that, the CBSE as a board and its reach internationally is there, not as much as I would like it to be, because I fundamentally believe there's a big scope for a board, probably like CBSE or any other board, which can be the standard for emerging countries, and have a and if that happens, that will then encourage the rest. So we do have IB, we do have IGCSE, we do have some international standards and boards for school education. The time is ripe to have a similar thing from India for across the world, specifically targeting aspirations of developing countries and emerging countries. And CBSE is there. They have a fantastic course. They are very dynamic in their approach. It's an opportunity waiting to happen.
And don't you feel that the online education will be the next big thing after the campus based learning mechanism?
So I had written an article where the title was Geography is History. And the whole base of the article was that geography does not matter now of location of education institution. And one can get the best education sitting anywhere in the world. I agree with you 100%. It's a game changer for the education sector, and it will change permanently a lot of the old facets.
Well, which means that the campus based learning mechanism may deplete if not fading away completely.
Yeah, it will lose its sense of importance. Obviously, social interactions are critical, needed. But instead of having 100% campus, probably the percentage will keep declining.
And with this, it's time to say goodbye to you, Ninad. Thank you for taking out time for this meaningful conversation.
Thank you, Himannshu, for inviting me to this show. It's brilliantly crafted. It's a need of the hour, and it's something I'm looking forward to listening to other episodes as well. Thank you.
I hope that you all have enjoyed listening to this conversation with Ninad Karpe. If you have liked this conversation, then do rate us on Apple Podcasts and share it in your network. And we will meet again in the next episode with another amazing guest. Thank you for listening to The Ed Show. You can now listen to the same podcast on Apple and Google Podcasts, or you can watch it live on YouTube. And I'll see you in the next episode. Till then, stay safe and stay happy.